Welcome to Breaking News to Trading Moves. So imagine taking the entire electricity output required to power 5 standard nuclear reactors and then trying to route all of that energy into one single commercial campus in Texas.
Right, without melting the local infrastructure down to the ground.
Exactly. And that is the exact engineering bottleneck we are analyzing for you right now. The headline driving this today: Nvidia is investing up to $2.1 billion in IREN as part of an AI data center deal.
Yeah, and the concrete facts of this agreement really draw a very clear map for where capital is flowing. So the two companies plan to deploy up to 5 gigawatts of infrastructure.
Which is just a massive number.
It is. Furthermore, IREN gave Nvidia a 5-year right to buy up to 30 million shares at 70 per share.
Wow.
Yeah, with future deployments going directly to focus on IREN's Sweetwater campus in Texas.
Okay, so we are strictly covering this headline today and outlining the specific winners and losers in the market. Because this news highlights how AI infrastructure is moving directly from pure chip demand into, well, power, land, data centers, cloud capacity, networking, and financing.
Yeah, you cannot just have the hardware.
Right. To understand the physical infrastructure, we first have to look at the hardware making it necessary. What does a $2.1 billion physical infrastructure deal tell us about the demand for the hardware itself?
Well, I mean, it shows that NVIDIA's willingness to support large-scale AI factory infrastructure. It proves that GPU, accelerator, and custom AI chip demand still has plenty of room to run.
So they're not slowing down.
Not at all. If they are committing billions to the concrete, the structural steel, and the power agreements, it tells you they already know the compute engines are rolling off the assembly line and, they require a place to live.
That makes logical sense. If you are financing the garage, you must already have the cars sold.
Exactly. The market interprets this as a clear indicator that the underlying demand for the physical compute engines remains robust.
Okay, so the winners in this chip and accelerator category are Nvidia, AMD Advanced Micro Devices, and AVGO Broadcom.
Yeah, and obviously NVIDIA is the primary beneficiary here, but this also confirms a broader trend for the entire tier of high-performance semiconductor manufacturers. The hardware ecosystem moves in tandem.
I have to stop you there, though. We are talking about Broadcom and Advanced Micro Devices, but the headline is entirely about an Nvidia investment.
Right.
So why does an Nvidia investment in physical buildings benefit Broadcom? Are they not direct competitors in certain spaces?
Well, they compete in specific lanes, sure, but they also operate in a symbiotic ecosystem. So when you build a cluster of like 100,000 graphical processing units, the limiting factor is no longer how fast a single chip can calculate a math problem.
What is the limiting factor then?
The limiting factor is how fast those individual chips can talk to each other. So Broadcom provides the critical alternative accelerators and the specialized networking components required to stitch all of these processing units together.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, if one processor is waiting even a microsecond for data from another processor, the entire multi-million installation basically stalls.
Wow, okay. So if NVIDIA GPUs are high-performance race cars, the market now realizes you need highly specialized racetracks to run them.
That is exactly it. And that is how IREN gains credibility as a specialized AI infrastructure platform, or, what the industry calls a neocloud, rather than just a former crypto-linked data center.
Let us define that for the listener. A neocloud.
A neocloud is a boutique, purpose-built supercomputer environment rented out specifically for high-performance workloads.
So they are not hosting websites.
No, they are not trying to host your company's email server. They are dedicated almost entirely to intensive machine learning and artificial intelligence training. And the market is paying much closer attention to these smaller operators because they possess what the larger players are struggling to find.
Which is what?
Immediate power access, physical land cleared for development, GPU relationships, and the enterprise customers ready to rent that compute.
Got it. The tickers for the winners in this neocloud category are IREN, IRN, CRWV, CoreWeave, and APLD, Applied Digital.
Right. CoreWeave and Applied Digital operate in that exact same specialized category as IREN.
Okay, but this brings us to a physical reality. Specialized data centers cannot run on air. They need electricity.
They need an unbelievable amount of electricity.
Right. So let us look at the power and grid infrastructure winners. The deal explicitly mentions a 5-gigawatt infrastructure target. Can you put 5 gigawatts into perspective for the listener? Why are traditional electrical equipment companies and grid contractors suddenly central to this AI conversation?
Well, to put it into perspective, a typical commercial nuclear reactor produces about 1 gigawatt of continuous power.
Wait, really? 1 gigawatt?
Yeah, so a 5 gigawatt target is roughly equivalent to the total electrical output of 5 nuclear reactors. It is enough electricity to power millions of residential homes.
Wow.
So when you attempt to route that much raw power into a single commercial campus like Sweetwater in Texas, you cannot just, call the local utility company and ask them to hook you up.
Because if you tried to pull that from the existing local grid, you would literally melt the transmission wires.
You would cause a catastrophic failure. The local grid was simply not built to handle industrial loads of that magnitude. AI campuses require reliable baseload power generation, heavy-duty transformers, specialized switchgear, and massive transmission capacity upgrades.
Okay, so the tickers for the winners in this power and electrical equipment category are CEG, Constellation Energy, VST, Vistra, ETN, Eaton, and PWR, Quanta Services.
Yeah, let us break down how each of these actually functions here. Constellation Energy and Vistra represent the power generation side. They operate the physical plants that provide clean, uninterrupted baseload power 24 hours a day.
Because you cannot train a model on intermittent power.
Exactly. And then you have Eaton, ticker ETN. They manufacture the massive transformers and the switchgear.
What does switchgear actually do in this context?
Think of it as the industrial valves and floodgates on a massive dam. If a power surge hits the facility, you cannot risk frying 100,000 graphical processing units.
Right, that costs tens of thousands apiece.
Right. The switchgear ensures the voltage remains perfectly stable.
And finally, Quanta Services, ticker PWR. They are the grid contractors. They provide the specialized, skilled labor force that physically constructs the massive transmission towers.
Because without the skilled tradespeople physically building the high-voltage bridges, the entire operation remains purely theoretical.
That makes sense. But capital's finite. If billions are flowing toward these specialized neoclouds and the electrical grids, that money is not flowing somewhere else. Let us look at the losers, starting with the traditional cloud providers. I have to admit some confusion here.
Okay, what is the confusion?
If I am Amazon or Alphabet, I have billions in cash, and I already dominate the global cloud computing market. Why on earth am I in the loser column here? Can they not just buy the same hardware IREN is buying?
They absolutely can, and they do. The issue comes down to capital expenditure pressure, or CapEx.
Oh, okay.
These traditional hyperscalers are still major AI winners, but this deal proves AI infrastructure is becoming far more expensive and highly competitive.
To protect their capacity and performance against the neoclouds.
Exactly. They have to spend heavily just to maintain their market position, which pressures their free cash flow, their margins, and honestly, investor patience.
The specific tickers facing this CapEx pressure are AMZN, Amazon, MSFT, Microsoft, and GOGL, Alphabet. Let us move to the legacy enterprise hardware names.
Right, so the AI build-out strictly rewards companies directly tied to GPUs and hyperscale workloads. Legacy hardware and storage names are viewed as far less central to this new stack.
The tickers in this legacy hardware category are HPE, Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, NTAP, NetApp, and WDC, Western Digital. Explain why a storage company like Western Digital gets left behind here. AI requires massive amounts of data, right?
It does, but it comes down to bandwidth and speed. Traditional storage relies on standard drives, but the new processors require high bandwidth memory directly integrated onto the processing chip itself.
Oh, so a standard drive is just too slow.
Way too slow. It becomes a severe bottleneck. And since IT budgets are finite, capital flows exclusively where the performance demands it, leaving legacy hardware behind.
Got it. I want to bring the conversation back to IREN's specific history. We mentioned earlier that IREN used to be primarily associated with cryptocurrency mining.
Yeah, they were.
So what about the companies still operating strictly in the pure Bitcoin mining space? I'm looking at this list of losers, and I have to ask, do they not already possess massive warehouses and heavy power contracts? Why can they not simply unplug their Bitcoin machines and plug in the new processors?
Because the physical environment required for a cryptocurrency mine and an advanced computing cluster are completely alien to each other.
Break down that difference for the listener. What does a traditional Bitcoin mine actually look like inside?
A standard mining operation is essentially a bare-bones warehouse. They use basic industrial fans pulling outside air. They can tolerate dust, high heat, and most importantly, they can tolerate power interruptions.
So if electricity prices spike, they just turn off the machines.
Exactly. The network does not care. But if you are training a complex enterprise AI model, you cannot shut the power off for 3 hours. The entire training run would fail.
Costing millions.
Right. Enterprise customers require hospital-grade clean rooms, backup battery arrays, liquid cooling, and complete redundancy.
So the pure cryptocurrency operators hold the power contracts, but their physical buildings are basically rugged campsites, whereas the new processors require a sterile laboratory.
That is a great way to put it. Traders are now separating miners with credible AI infrastructure plans from those that simply have large power assets but rely strictly on Bitcoin price movements and lack high-performance computing revenue.
The specific tickers facing pressure in this pure mining category are MARA, MRA Holdings, RIOT, Riot Platforms, and CLSK, CleanSpark.
Yeah, until they can prove they're deploying that electrical capacity for high-value workloads, they remain entirely on the wrong side of this specific infrastructure trade.
Let us summarize the core transition we have mapped out today. We are looking at a very clear expansion of AI investments from the pure chip makers directly into power, specialized data centers, and grid upgrades.
Yeah.
And this dynamic is drawing a very clear dividing line in the market between the winners and losers.
It really is. And it leaves you with a final thought to ponder. As AI demands highly specific physical locations like the Sweetwater campus to operate, will specialized real estate and power access eventually become more valuable than the computing hardware itself?
Please remember that this is not financial advice or buy or sell recommendations. This is purely the opinion of the author.